can we clear this up to get rid of this entire headache?
No. No.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about a question we get kind of all the time, and it's about how your rights are impacted if you are in close proximity to maybe a prohibited person. This might be a felon you live with, might be a friend, but ultimately, does this affect your ability to carry, purchase, possess firearms? What are some pitfalls, and is there any remedy for kind of getting rid of all these headaches? But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And I think a good place to start this is, I think a lot of people, there's a natural inclination. You get the bad news, family member, hey, guess what? You're a convicted felon now. They live with you. You have a lot of guns because you love the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself. Where do we go with state and federal law on this?
So both come into play. So you have to consider both of them. We're going to talk to you about federal law and about some general state precepts that will help you. But just know, right, we've got federal law. Felons cannot be in possession of firearms ever. Ever.
For now.
For now. I do think that's going to change. But there are, right, so you've got the federal law. But you also have to worry about your state's law. And in some cases, that state's law is actually much less restrictive when it comes to that felony possession. What it means, is there a time limit? And so you have to consider both of those things, not to mention, and what we're not discussing today, is anything that touches something like bond conditions, something like they are on parole or probation, and as conditions of those things, they can't be around any firearms in the home. These are different animals we are talking about. This felon is off paper, right? No more government monitoring, just quite simply, under the law, can they be around firearms? How does it affect the people who live with them, commute with them in the vehicle? Maybe you're just going to lunch with your friend and he's a felon and you want to carry and you want to know what's going to happen. So step one, Richard, what's the key? What's operative?
Yeah, I think we need to hone in on the word possession, because if we look at state and federal law, that's going to be the common overriding theme. And we're talking about the felon. We're not, or the prohibited person. We're not talking about necessarily you, but possession means a whole heck of a lot of things: care, custody, control, and management. So care, that means you got, it's right there with you. Care, custody, control, those all kind of mean the same thing. Management is where the kind of expansive definition is, if they found a kilo of cocaine in the trunk of my car, guess what? I'm going to get charged with possession of drugs because I have management over that car. I could go out and unlock it and take control of that thing if I wanted to.
Right. You're not hiding the drugs in your butt crack, but it's in your management in the trunk. That's where the drugs are hidden.
That's not where I was going with that.
That's where you were a prosecutor too. There are drugs in every butt crack's got drugs in it in certain parts of town. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'm going to take your word for it. I wasn't expecting you to go there.
You should have been. All right. All right, back to, yes, management. Well, that also means, think about, I would say, if I am in the car and I am driving and it's my car, and as there is wont to be, there is a firearm in the center console, the person in the passenger seat, if they are a felon, I think there is a decent argument, at least to get them through probable cause for an arrest, that they have management over that center console.
Right.
Definitely if it's in the glove box.
Right.
They might not even know it's there, but it's within their management.
So this expansive definition of possession, just know it doesn't mean having your hand on the pistol grip, right? It could be
drugs in the butt crack.
It could be more expansive than that. And so knowing that, we look at, okay, first, we don't want our friend or family member or relative to get in trouble for this stuff. And so we need to avoid them being accused wrongfully of being in possession of this.
Right.
And so it looks a little bit different of whether you're in your home or your vehicle. I'll say most of these kind of controversies come up in the vehicle, but let's start with the home first.
Sure. And so this is the most restrictive under federal law we get. You might have more restrictive laws in your home state. You might have less restrictive. Like in Texas, if you have been out from under papers for 5 years and you're a felon, congratulations. Texas says home only. You get to have possession of that firearm. Now, of course, federal law says you're committing a crime. So there is an uncomfortable tension there. But just under federal law, just under no possession, I think if you are carrying on your person and there's a felon who lives with you, you're completely fine. I think if you have a safe to which only you have the key or combination, you are perfectly fine. I think potentially, I've got my closet, my husband's got his. If I store my guns in my closet and he has never participated in that, they're still in my care, custody, control, management.
Yeah, and part of
It's
this,
squishy.
yeah, this felon in possession, I mean, there's two parts to every crime: the mental state, the physical act itself. And so the prosecutor, the government would have to prove that they intentionally or knowingly possess this firearm. And so that argument starts to go away if a firearm is kept in a place that the felon has no knowledge of the firearm. And so if it's truly hidden, locked up with exclusive access away from felon, it makes it more difficult for the government to show or try to demonstrate this person had unlawful possession of it.
Right, exactly. Now, that kind of goes against what we just said about like the glove box and the center console. I mean, it doesn't, because we'll explain further. But for everyone who is just like, wait a second, let's move to the car and let's move to mental states in the car. So you're in the vehicle. It's my vehicle. Gun is in the glove box. You're in the passenger seat. You're a felon. What's the government going to say?
I mean, they're going to say that I had possession of it. I mean,
Well, and
clearly.
and they're going to say that you had to have known,
Right.
right? And it's going to be your lawyer's job in court to disprove it.
Yeah.
And how are they going to do that?
I mean, it's pretty hard to prove a negative in a court.
Yeah,
But
I mean, they're probably going to do it with my testimony, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to get up there, on the stand, and I'm going to say, I swear under oath that that is mine, that he had absolutely no idea it was there, and therefore he did not have the requisite mental state.
Yeah, and I'll say the car, again, is the most common place that people get in trouble, especially with a shared vehicle. And this makes it even harder on the prohibited person if they're the only person in the car. Let's say you have one car in your family, you have a license holder or somebody who regularly carries, they leave their gun in the car, prohibited person driving to work, whatever it is. If that firearm's discovered, those cases are tough.
Oh, yeah. And we actually, we're fighting one of those right now,
Are you
right?
really?
Well, I guess technically Edwin is,
Sure.
but
Okay.
I've been there, been talking about it. But no, I mean, that is unfortunate because you really have a truly innocent victim, and what are you going to do? You just got to put it up to the jury and again put that testimony on and say, look, I mean, there's no intent element here, there's no, I mean, there's please,
Sure. But I think
as my daughter would say, peace.
yeah, but up until this point, we're talking about, all right, well, we don't want our family member or friend to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our rights for a moment. We're not a prohibited person. We regularly carry. Maybe we have a license. How does this impact our ability to keep guns in the house, keep guns in our vehicles? It shouldn't have any effect whatsoever.
It shouldn't, right? It shouldn't be the person who is not prohibited getting in trouble. It's generally going to be the prohibited person who gets in trouble. I will say, unless your state has a very expansive transfer law.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up next. Here is where non-prohibited people get in trouble, when interacting with theoretically prohibited people, is an accusation that you unlawfully transferred the firearm to the prohibited person. Crime under federal law.
Yep.
Most states, it's a crime under state law.
Yeah. And I think that transfer, I mean, that's the thing, is that like the federal government's never going to come in if you have a firearm in the home with a felon, accuse you of transfer. But your state government might.
Yeah, they might actually do that.
So, I mean, that's where I think it's really more important to understand your state's law about transfer. Hopefully, you don't ever have that come up. If you're doing it smartly in the way we're advising, that's never going to come up, but you need to look at it.
Yeah, so for the responsible gun owner, it comes down to keeping the firearm under your exclusive possession. You shouldn't run into any problems under those circumstances. Now, I think the next question that we want to talk about is, can we clear this up to get rid of this entire headache?
No. No. How do we do it, Richard?
Well, I mean, it's going to depend on your state's law. Can felons get their rights back? There are quite a few cases working their way through the courts especially for non-violent felonies. We just had the prohibition on people under certain protective orders being upheld with Rahimi. So we're going to see some developments on this on the federal level, but ultimately it either has to be some kind of judicial, saying, hey, guess what? This provisional law is unconstitutional. We're seeing some felons sue the government proactively, requesting to get their rights back. Those things are making their way
Yeah.
through the courts. And then finally, I mean, some states have an expunction procedure or first offender procedure. Some states have a pardon procedure. Unless they're getting one of these extrajudicial remedies, absent that, I mean, it's kind of a really uphill battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the most part, we are going to tell people if you want your gun rights back, you are going to have to go seek a pardon, and you are going to have to seek not just a regular pardon, but you're going to have to check the extra box and make the extra, jump through your extra hoops in order to get those Second Amendment rights restored in addition to your pardon. Because if you just get a baseline pardon in most states, that actually doesn't restore your Second Amendment rights. And so it is a long process. It is a process that, depending on what state you're in, is either incredibly unlikely to succeed or maybe moderately unlikely to succeed. I mean, you can't get them back if you don't try, but it is not easy and it is not a guarantee.
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.